Hey guys, Jordan Hammond here, Buy, Build, Hold, coming to you with week one of the deal update. All right, I want to talk a little bit about some of the deals I've looked at this past week, some of the progress on them, and just get into a little of the behind the scenes information that I'll be sharing throughout these weekly updates. All right, let's get into it. So looked at about 15 different deals this week. Had, let's see, about 6 different seller calls, just introductory seller calls with 5 or 6 of them, I believe. So I'll just kind of give the highlights of 3 of them. And then I also want to talk about another deal that I had under contract 2 weeks ago that we got into due diligence on, but it didn't end up going through. I'll chat about that at the end of the video. So this week I looked at really unique, kind of very different types of deals. One was an Amazon FBA deal, which for those of you who don't know, it's Fulfillment by Amazon. That's what FBA stands for. So in that kind of situation, you don't have really much to do with anything in terms of the inventory, the fulfillment of that inventory. Amazon, all the traffic comes through them. So it's a really hands-off approach to running an online business. There's a lot of competition on there though, and Amazon takes a huge chunk of the profit margins. So you have to have a high margin item. You have to be very diligent with staying ahead of competition. There's a lot of copycat competition on there. So I looked at a deal there which focuses on some specific SKUs catered to the baby market, the infant market. One is like some safety things for around the house and a few other products. So this deal has been in existence for about 4 years, doing about 130K net a year. They're asking a price of, it works out to about a $450,000 ask on it. And then there's plus some inventory on that as well. Already gone back and forth with the seller a little bit. Seems like they want to get the deal done. They're very motivated. They had a very unrealistic initial price of, wow, it was like 800K. It was at like a 4.5 multiple, which for an Amazon deal is just totally unreasonable. The average multiple for an Amazon deal is just under 2. So they were just a little bit aggressive with that, a lot aggressive with that. So potentially could make an offer on that again. I wouldn't take it for anything more than like a 1.8 multiple. It's a little bit outside of my criteria. Want to focus on businesses doing at least 250K seller discretionary earnings, and with recurring customers, this business doesn't have either of them, so it'd have to be an extremely good deal to pick that one up. Another call I had a seller call with a trucking company, actually a local company in my city here in Winnipeg, and this is kind of a niche long-haul trucking service that they provide. Not a lot of other competition. There is some, but it's not kind of your typical just closed, box shipping. So some unique opportunities there, just with the niche that it's in. Sounds like there's already a lot of infrastructure in place in terms of employees and some systems. They were listing it for about a 3.6 multiple. There's a lot of equipment and assets involved in that deal, which I don't really want to get involved with. There's not a big return on investment. There's no return on investments when you're paying for equipment, right? I want to pay for cash. My purchase, my ROI is based on the cash that I get out of the business. So whenever there's real estate, whenever there's a lot of equipment, whenever there's a ton of inventory, it just takes away from that return, because that's cash that you got to put into the deal as well. So this one had, I think, about 200 grand worth of trucks and fixtures and equipment, that kind of thing. So it makes it a little less attractive. I don't think I'm going to pursue that one. Looked at another deal this week. I actually have a seller call on it tomorrow. This one I'm really interested in. This is a more of a remote opportunity. Tons of repeat business, which is fantastic. What it is, it's trade show displays and setup. So they do the design work, they outsource the manufacturing of them, and it can be run from anywhere. So currently there's one part-time designer, There's two owners that are kind of co-running it, each putting in about 20 hours a week. And they have some big name customers. I think GE is one of their customers. There's some other big names as well. They have some repeat clients, which is great. That's one of the criteria that I'm looking for. And they're doing about, I think their peak year was in 2015. They did about 375K net. And last year they did about 265. So the business has dipped a little bit. So on the call, we probably won't touch on that. The first call is just more of an introductory, make a connection kind of call. But definitely an interesting opportunity there that kind of fits in my wheelhouse a little bit more. A lot easier to outsource the labor for that, to plug in an owner-operator, potentially an incentivized manager, after kind of 3 to 6 months of running it myself and figuring out the business. So those are the 3 ones I've looked at this week. But one of those I'll pursue. The FBA one I might make a lowball offer on just to see where the seller's at in terms of gauging their motivation. So the other deal, this is a deal that actually fell through 2 weeks ago, but I think it bears repeating because this is the real story of buying these businesses, and I want to give you the real authentic story. Found out about this deal through a broker. This business, I'll give you this short look at the highlights. It manufactures outdoor rugs for RVs, for kind of like garden areas, backyards. It allows the grass to grow through the rug. So it's polypropylene, recycled plastic. And they kind of started this business as an offshoot of their operating company. And a little bit unsophisticated with running it. It was a husband and wife team. They never really scaled it. At its highest point, I think it was making about 100K seller's discretionary earnings per year, which certainly isn't bad. They weren't collecting emails, they weren't really doing any marketing, they had no sales system, no marketing system. They actually had all the books baked in with their operating company books, so it just made it really messy. They were asking a 3 multiple. This thing was just being left alone. They literally weren't pushing it at all. They weren't even restocking inventory, so it was just dying, but people were still ordering. And so there was potential there, right? But they were valuing it based on everything that they put into the deal, into the business in the past, not based on where it was currently at. And where it was currently at, it had a bit of a brand, it had some presence in the market, but it wasn't being run like a business. It was kind of back in startup mode. Like for us to take this over, we'd have to take it over, systemize it, scale it, put in at least one person to really get this thing back to being a business. So we ended up, I went through some calls while it was still with the broker, and made an offer, which was a lowball offer based on what they were asking, but a very reasonable offer based on where the business was at. They ended up passing on it until their broker listing ran out. And then what happened, so I've ran into this in a couple occasions, the expectations when some owner-operators are selling a business, especially their baby that they founded, is that it's worth a lot more than it really is. And this is for a couple of obvious reasons. Number one, it's their baby, right? They've started this thing, they've put a lot of sweat and money into it, so just naturally they're going to think it's more valuable than somebody else. That's totally understandable. Number two, though, is most of these small business operators have never sold a business before. So lots of them approach this transaction like it's a real estate transaction. And if you approach it like a real estate transaction, you're never going to get a deal done, because it's not that type of transaction. There is a transition period, there's a lot more moving parts, it is just very, very different. So that's kind of what I ran into with this seller. They approached it from that mindset. And so long story short, we ended up getting an LOI signed at, it ended up being a no money down deal. They were going to take back the whole note on the business at $80,000. And so we got that signed. They wanted me to personally guarantee the note, which isn't industry standard at all. That debt is sub-debt to anything else, and it's guaranteed by the business. That's the risk that the seller takes for financing it. So we did that, I agreed to it, knowing that in the future I wasn't going to actually move ahead with that deal. You know, we were going to renegotiate when it came time to do the purchase agreement. And we got into due diligence, and it was very clear to me that they just weren't willing, and I guess weren't motivated enough to actually get this deal done. They weren't willing to provide customer information, basic traffic information for how their website generates traffic, just very basic industry standard due diligence items that need to be looked at when you're buying anything, whether it's $80,000 deal or $2 million deal. For whatever reason, they weren't willing to provide it. And so at that point, you know, that's a big red flag for me. I just walked away from it. And I think they're just going to let it run into the ground and make nothing from it, which, you know, doesn't make any sense to me, but that's their choice, and I respect that. So lesson learned from that is to get a sense of whether they are truly motivated as early as possible in the pipeline process, to not waste, you know, my time dealing with somebody that really isn't motivated to sell the business or going to provide all the information. And you know, ways I can do that is ask some different questions up front, be very straightforward with what is expected in due diligence, even before we get there. So took away some highlights from this past week, wanted to share them with you guys. Please, if you have any questions, anything that you want to learn about, anything that maybe you want me to touch on, let me know. I'd love to get some feedback and potentially do some videos in the future on that. So Jordan Hammond, buy, build, hold. Thanks guys for watching today. We'll see you on the next video.